When you fail to honor your word to yourself, you are beginning the cycle of self-betrayal. Think about it. Every time you make a promise to yourself and then break it, you chip away at your integrity, your self-esteem, and ultimately your future. You tell yourself you're going to wake up early and hit the gym, but then you hit snooze for the 5th time, telling yourself you'll try again tomorrow. You commit to working on that passion project, but the distractions of everyday life take priority. You tell yourself you're going to eat healthy, but that bag of chips or that extra slice of pizza feels too good to pass up. And each time you break a promise to yourself, the consequences compound. You might tell yourself it's just this one time, or I'll get back on track tomorrow, but that tomorrow never comes, and the promises stack up unfulfilled. The real cost here isn't just the missed workout or the unhealthy meal, it's the erosion of trust with yourself. Think about a relationship. If someone constantly broke promises to you, you'd stop trusting them. You might even start questioning their commitment to the relationship. You'd wonder, why does this person say one thing but do another? And if that person was you, if you were the one breaking promises to yourself day after day, how long before you start doubting your own ability to follow through? How long before you start questioning whether you're really capable of achieving what you say you want? How long before you start to believe that maybe you're not deserving of the success you dream of? And the truth is, once that trust with yourself begins to break down, it affects everything else. Your actions become disconnected from your beliefs, and that's when you stop making progress. You start giving up on goals because you've convinced yourself that you can't rely on your own commitment. You begin to fall into the trap of good intentions without real action. And when you continually break your promises to yourself, you create a pattern of self-doubt that spirals out of control. You might say, I'll try again tomorrow. But that cycle will only keep repeating itself unless you make a choice to change it. Now you may be wondering, why does this happen? How is it that we're capable of keeping promises to others, but we fail so often to keep them to ourselves? Part of it is because deep down, we don't always see ourselves as worthy of those promises. We treat ourselves like secondary characters in the story of our lives, often putting others and their needs ahead of our own. We become so accustomed to breaking promises to ourselves that we don't even realize how much we're undermining our own power, our own potential. But the simple truth is this: you are the most important person you'll ever have a relationship with. If you cannot honor your word to yourself, if you cannot commit to your own growth, then you will never be able to fully tap into the greatness that lies within you. Your word is your bond. And every time you fail to keep your word to yourself, you lose a little bit of your ability to move forward, to grow, to succeed. This is the foundation of self-betrayal. The small acts of breaking promises to yourself over time, which leads to bigger acts of self-doubt, self-neglect, and a sense of unfulfilled potential. The only way to break this cycle is to start honoring your word to yourself in small ways. Start with the promises that seem easy to keep. Commit to waking up at the time you said you would. Commit to taking that small action toward your goal every single day. Set yourself up for success by building momentum with the small wins so that when bigger challenges arise, you've already built the muscle of keeping promises to yourself. You've already built the trust within yourself that you can rely on. And when you have that trust, when you know that you are someone who keeps your word, even when it's hard, you begin to transform your relationship with yourself. And from there, everything else starts to fall into place. Living for other people's approval is one of the most subtle and damaging ways we betray ourselves. You might think you're living for others' approval in small ways, but the truth is this need for validation can consume your life if you're not careful. We all have this innate desire to be liked, to be accepted, to be seen in a positive light. But when that desire becomes the driving force of your actions, when your choices are rooted in what others will think of you, you give away your power, your authenticity, and your freedom. The truth is you cannot please everyone. And the more you try, the more you lose yourself in the process. I'll tell you a story. I remember a time in my life when I was chasing external validation, trying to fit into a mold that was never meant for me. I was running a business, and at the time, I thought I needed to appear a certain way to be taken seriously. I wanted to look successful, to speak with authority, and to impress the people around me. But in doing so, I wasn't being true to myself. I was pretending to be something I wasn't, trying to meet expectations that weren't even mine to meet. I was so focused on what others thought that I lost sight of who I was and what I truly wanted. I wanted approval from colleagues, from mentors, from friends, even from people who didn't really care about my well-being. And the more I sought their approval, the more disconnected I became from my own purpose, from my true self. When you live for others' approval, you're constantly shifting who you are, molding yourself to fit the expectations, opinions, and desires of people who are not living your life. You start making decisions based on how others will perceive you rather than on what aligns with your own values and goals. It's exhausting. You're constantly adapting, changing, and compromising, never truly stepping into who you are meant to be. You may even become a chameleon, always adjusting to fit into different environments, relationships, or situations, but in doing so, you lose your own identity. It's like wearing someone else's clothes. They may fit for a while, but eventually, they start to suffocate you. And then when you start living for someone else's approval, you sacrifice your authenticity. You start putting on masks, playing roles, trying to live up to other people's expectations of you instead of being true to who you are. You're afraid of disappointing others, of stepping outside the lines, of challenging their perceptions. But here's the harsh truth. When you are constantly trying to meet the expectations of others, you become a prisoner to their opinion. You are living in bondage to their judgments. And the worst part is that no matter how hard you try, you will never fully satisfy everyone's expectations because everyone has a different idea of who you should be and what you should do. What happens then? You wake up one day and realize you spent years of your life trying to please everyone except the most important person. Yourself. You've spent your time trying to live up to the standards that others set for you, only to find that they don't know what's best for you. They don't know your calling. They don't know your dreams. And they certainly don't understand your journey. And the longer you live for the approval of others, the further you move away from your own purpose, your own vision, and your own fulfillment. I had to learn the hard way that if I wanted to live a life of impact, of freedom, and of true success, I needed to stop worrying about everyone else's opinions. I had to accept that not everyone would like me, not everyone would approve of what I was doing, and that was okay. I had to realize that my value doesn't come from what others think of me, it comes from who I am, what I stand for, and the work I do in alignment with my purpose. When I stopped living for the approval of others and started living for my own truth, everything changed. I began making decisions based on my values, my goals, and what felt right for me. I started creating the life I wanted instead of the life that others thought I should have. If you're living for approval, ask yourself, is this who I really am? Is this the life I want to create? Am I choosing my path based on my own desires? Or am I trying to meet someone else's expectations? Your life is yours to live. And it's time to stop letting other people control your direction. Step into your authenticity. Embrace who you are, what you believe, and the unique path that's meant for you. Stop looking for validation from others, because the only validation that matters is the one that comes from within. Only when you stop seeking external approval can you start living your truth, your purpose, and your greatest potential. Settling for mediocrity is one of the most insidious ways we betray ourselves. It often starts small, like a little compromise here and there, a moment of convenience over excellence, a decision that seems harmless but slowly chips away at your potential. At first, it might feel okay. You tell yourself, it's good enough, or I'm doing all right, and it gives you a sense of temporary peace. But deep down, you know that something inside of you is restless. You know that you're capable of so much more, and that voice inside of you keeps reminding you that you're not living up to your full potential. The problem with mediocrity is that it's comfortable. It feels safe. It feels easier to just get by and go through the motions. Mediocrity doesn't demand growth, doesn't challenge your limits, doesn't push you to rise to the occasion. But here's the truth. Comfort is the enemy of progress. When you choose to settle for good enough, you are essentially saying, I'm fine with being less than I am capable of. And when you say that over and over again, you start to condition yourself to think that average is all you deserve, that mediocrity is the best you can achieve. But you were never meant to live in mediocrity. There was a time in my life when I was just getting by. I was doing enough to get by at work, enough to keep the people around me happy, enough to make ends meet, but I wasn't truly thriving. I wasn't fulfilling my potential, and I wasn't challenging myself to be better, to go further, to reach higher. I was comfortable in my mediocrity, but inside I felt a constant sense of dissatisfaction. The person I saw in the mirror wasn't the person I dreamed of becoming. And the more I allowed myself to settle for less, the more I felt disconnected from my own aspiration. And here's the kicker. When you settle for mediocrity, you don't just betray yourself in the moment, you're also betraying your future. You're telling yourself that your dreams are too big, too unrealistic, or too out of reach. When you stop pushing, stop striving for excellence, stop reaching for more, you abandon the future version of yourself who was meant to be a leader, an innovator, a creator, a trailblazer. Mediocrity robs you of the growth and the impact you were born to make. Every time you settle for good enough, you're telling your future that it doesn't matter. And the sad truth is, the more you settle, the less your future will reflect the greatness you are capable of. I've realized that nothing of value ever comes from mediocrity. Excellence takes effort, it takes time, it requires you to step outside your comfort zone, to take risks, to make sacrifices. And let me be clear, excellence doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean being flawless or never making mistakes. What excellence means is doing your best, consistently striving for growth, constantly improving, and never giving up on the belief that you can be better than you were yesterday. It's about pushing your boundaries, even when it's uncomfortable, and refusing to let yourself be limited by fear, doubt, or convenience. One of the most dangerous things about mediocrity is that it creeps up on you. It doesn't announce itself with big, obvious signs. It's not like you wake up one day and say, I'm choosing to settle for average today. No, it's in the little decisions, the times when you choose to stay comfortable instead of pushing yourself harder, the moments when you don't go the extra mile because you've convinced yourself that good enough is enough. You make excuses for why you can't achieve more, why you don't have time, why this goal isn't as important as you thought it was. It's these small, seemingly harmless choices that begin to add up over time. Before you know it, you've spent years settling, and the distance between you and your dreams keeps growing further and further apart. The first step to overcoming mediocrity is realizing that you are worthy of greatness. You are worthy of pursuing the life that excites you, the life that challenges you, the life that makes you proud of what you're becoming. You were not created to be ordinary, to be stuck in the grind of just enough. You were designed for more. So the next time you find yourself slipping into mediocrity, ask yourself, is this the best I can do? Is this the life I want to live? Is this the person I want to become? Stop settling for mediocrity. Don't let yourself off the hook with excuses or distractions. Choose greatness, choose growth, choose to rise above the ordinary. Every single day, take action that moves you closer to your highest potential. Demand more from yourself. Push yourself further than you ever thought possible. You are capable of extraordinary things, but you'll only see that greatness come to life when you refuse to settle for anything less than your best. Your future depends on it. And the world needs you to stop playing small and start living the life you were meant to live. Avoiding responsibility for your life is one of the clearest signs that you're betraying yourself. I've seen it countless times, and I've been guilty of it too. It's so easy to fall into the trap of shifting the blame onto others or circumstances. It's so much easier to point the finger than to look at yourself and say, I am the one in control here. I am the one who gets to choose how I react, how I grow, how I move forward. But here's the hard truth. As long as you're giving away your power, you're handing over the reins to your life to someone else. And when you do that, you stop being the author of your story. You become a character in someone else's. The temptation to avoid responsibility comes from the fear of facing the truth. It's easier to blame your environment, your upbringing, or the people around you than to confront the fact that your choices are shaping your reality. When things go wrong, when you hit a roadblock, face a setback, or encounter failure, the first reaction might be to look outward. You think, if only I had the right connections, or if only I had grown up in a different situation, or if only someone would give me a chance. You start blaming the economy, your boss, your circumstances, and even the people closest to you. But every time you do that, you give up your personal power. Every time you shift the blame, you step further away from your ability to change your own situation. I've been there. I remember early on in my career when things weren't going the way I wanted them to. I had all these dreams and ambitions, but I wasn't getting the results I thought I should. It was easy to point fingers at my mentors, at the market, at my competitors. I thought they had some advantage I didn't, that the world was conspiring against me. It wasn't until I looked at myself and asked, what am I doing wrong? That things began to shift. And let me tell you, that shift wasn't easy. It required me to take a hard look at my own choices, habits, and actions, and to admit that I was the one holding myself back. I had to stop being the victim and start being the victor. I had to embrace my role as the creator of my circumstances, not just the observer of them. The truth is, life will never be perfect, and no one will ever have everything handed to them. We all face challenges, obstacles, and setbacks, but when you avoid responsibility for those challenges, you remain stuck. When you blame others for your lack of progress, you relinquish your ability to change anything. You start to believe that you are powerless, that your success depends on external forces rather than your own actions and decisions. Taking responsibility for your life is not just about acknowledging your failures. It's about taking full ownership of your successes, your growth, and your future. It's about saying, this is my life, and I am the one who decides how it unfolds. It's about understanding that every choice you make, whether big or small, has an impact on where you'll be tomorrow. The decisions you make today shape your reality. So if you're constantly putting the blame on someone or something else, you're simply putting off the hard work of creating the life you want. When I started to take responsibility for my actions, everything changed. I stopped waiting for someone else to change my circumstances. I stopped hoping for a lucky break or an external solution to my problems. Instead, I focused on what I could control: my mindset, my habits, my actions, and my attitude. I realized that no one was going to make things happen for me. It wasn't up to the world to give me opportunities. It was up to me to create them. And that's when things began to shift. I started taking consistent action. I stopped making excuses and started showing up every day, doing the work and owning my path. But taking responsibility also means owning your failures. It means understanding that failure is a part of the process, not a sign that you're not capable. Every failure, every mistake, every setback is an opportunity to learn, grow, and get better. But when you avoid responsibility for those failures, you miss the chance to learn from them. You remain stagnant, constantly making the same mistakes without understanding why they happened in the first place. Only when you take responsibility for your mistakes can you truly move forward. You'll begin to see them as stepping stones, not roadblocks. You'll learn to adjust your course and keep moving toward your goals. What's even more powerful is that when you take responsibility for your life, you also take responsibility for your success. You realize that your future is in your hands. You have the power to create the life you want, to design your destiny, and to overcome any obstacle in your path. You stop waiting for someone else to give you permission, and you start taking bold steps towards your dream. You know that your success is not dependent on luck, fate, or external circumstances. It's determined by your commitment, your choices, and your relentless pursuit of your vision. Ultimately, avoiding responsibility is a form of self-sabotage. It's a way of telling yourself that you're not capable of changing your life. It's a way of staying in your comfort zone, avoiding the tough work that's necessary to grow and succeed. But when you take full responsibility for your life, when you stop blaming others and start taking control, you unlock your true potential. You empower yourself to make changes, take risks, and achieve things you once thought were impossible. So, ask yourself, am I taking full responsibility for my life? Or am I waiting for someone else to change my circumstances? The choice is yours. And it's time to step into your power. Stop avoiding responsibility and start embracing the life you were meant to create. Living without a clear sense of purpose is one of the most profound ways you betray yourself. Purpose isn't just a buzzword or some motivational concept you hear about in self-help books. It's the very foundation of your existence. It's the thing that drives you when everything else seems uncertain. It's the reason you wake up in the morning and keep moving forward, even when the world feels like it's against you. Without purpose, life becomes a blur. You drift from one day to the next with no clear direction, no burning passion, no fire that propels you. And in this drift, you lose the essence of who you are and what you're meant to contribute to the world. I've seen this happen in my own life, and I've watched it happen to others. There was a time when I was going through the motions, doing what was expected, following the standard path, but I wasn't really connected to what I was doing. I was working because I had to, not because I was inspired. I was making decisions because it was what others expected, not because it was in line with my deepest desires or values. I was living for the next paycheck, the next accomplishment, and I wasn't truly living for what mattered most to me. And let me tell you, that's a dangerous place to be. When you lack a sense of purpose, you stop asking the important questions. You stop wondering, why am I doing this? You stop seeking the deeper meaning in your actions and in your life. You stop thinking about the legacy you want to leave behind and the impact you want to make. Instead, you just exist. You fill your days with distractions, work on autopilot, and convince yourself that it's enough. But deep down, you feel empty. You might achieve things, but they don't feel fulfilling. You might make money, but it doesn't feel like you're truly building something meaningful. You go through life wondering why you're not more satisfied, why the success you've achieved feels hollow. The problem with living without purpose is that it causes you to live reactively instead of proactively. When you have no clear purpose guiding you, you are at the mercy of the world around you. You start living in response to what happens to you rather than creating the life that you want. You become a victim of circumstances instead of an architect of your own future. You allow the opinions of others, the demands of your job, or the pressures of society to dictate your choices. And in the process, you give up your power to shape your own destiny. Purpose isn't just about having a goal or a career. It's about understanding why you're here, what you're meant to contribute, and how you want to live. It's about finding that thing that makes you come alive, that gives you energy even on the hardest days. Purpose is what sustains you through the challenges, the failures, and the setbacks. It's the thing that keeps you moving forward when everything else seems uncertain. Without purpose, every obstacle feels like a setback. Every failure feels like the end of the road. But when you know your purpose, you see every challenge as an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to get closer to your ultimate goal. I remember a moment in my life when I realized how much I had been living without purpose. It was a hard pill to swallow, but I had to face it. I wasn't doing the work I was meant to be doing. I was good at what I did, but I wasn't truly passionate about it. I wasn't feeling the fire that I knew was possible. It wasn't until I reconnected with my deeper sense of purpose that things began to shift. I started asking myself the hard questions. What do I really want? What is it that I'm meant to do? And when I found my purpose, everything changed. I began waking up every day excited about the work I was doing. I started pushing myself in new ways. I was no longer drifting. I was moving with intention, with direction, and with a sense of purpose that filled me with energy and excitement. Purpose gives you direction, and direction gives you focus. When you have a purpose, every decision becomes easier. You can filter out distractions and focus on the things that matter most to your goals. You start saying no to the things that don't align with your purpose, and yes to the things that move you closer to your vision. With purpose, even the hardest days become worth it because you understand that the struggle is a part of the journey. Every challenge you face is simply a stepping stone toward fulfilling your greater purpose. But here's the thing, purpose isn't just something that happens to you, it's something you choose. It's not something that's handed to you on a silver platter. It's something you discover, nurture, and cultivate. It requires introspection, dedication, and the courage to live authentically. Purpose isn't something that you find in someone else's success or in the life that others are living. It's something that's unique to you. It's rooted in your values, your passions, and the impact you want to make in the world. The longer you ignore it, the longer you allow yourself to live without purpose, the more disconnected you become from your true self. If you're feeling lost, if you're feeling like something is missing, it might be time to reconnect with your purpose. Stop letting life happen to you and start making it happen for you. Ask yourself, what would it look like if I were truly living in alignment with my purpose? Find the thing that makes your heart beat faster, that makes you feel alive, that gives you the energy to keep going when the world seems heavy. Purpose is the fuel that drives success. It's the reason you do what you do. Without it, you're simply going through the motions. But with it, you become unstoppable. It's time to discover your purpose, step into it, and make every day count toward fulfilling the life you were meant to live. Being afraid of your own potential is one of the most self-destructive ways you can betray yourself. The truth is, deep inside, you know that you are capable of far more than you are currently achieving. You know it in your bones. You feel it in your gut. There are dreams within you that have not been fully realized, goals that have been pushed aside, and talents that have not been fully utilized because of one simple yet powerful thing: fear. Fear of success, fear of failure, fear of judgment, or maybe even fear of stepping into a version of yourself that is too big, too bold, or too extraordinary for the world to accept. But here's the reality. When you allow fear to control your life, you are betraying your true self. You are allowing your doubts and insecurities to dictate who you are and who you can become. I remember a time in my own life when I was terrified of my own potential. I had big dreams and visions for my future, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't ready. I felt like I wasn't good enough, or that maybe I wasn't deserving of the success I envisioned. There were moments when I'd get excited about a new project, a new opportunity, or a big goal, but then the fear would kick in. What if it didn't work out? What if I failed? What if I was exposed as a fraud? What if I couldn't handle the responsibility of success? These thoughts would paralyze me, keeping me stuck in a state of inaction. The fear of what might happen if I truly stepped into my greatness held me back from even trying. I was betraying myself by letting my fears stop me from realizing the version of myself that I knew was possible. But the more I struggled with that fear, the more I realized that it wasn't my capabilities I was afraid of. It was the change that came with fully embracing my potential. It's uncomfortable to stretch beyond the limits you've placed on yourself. It's easier to stay in the familiar, to play small, to avoid stepping into the spotlight, where success, while fulfilling, might feel too overwhelming, too intimidating. I had to confront the fear of growing into someone who was capable of achieving the very things I wanted, and once I did, everything changed. The reality is, your potential is infinite. There is no limit to what you can achieve, but that's exactly what scares most people. When you start to realize how powerful you are, how much you are capable of, and how much you can contribute to the world, it can be overwhelming. The vastness of your potential can feel intimidating because it means you have to step up, rise to the occasion and accept the responsibility of being more than what you currently are. But instead of leaning into that fear and allowing it to propel you forward, many choose to shrink back. They choose the comfort of their current limitations rather than the uncertainty of growth and success. The fear of your own potential can manifest in so many ways. It can show up as procrastination, as playing small, as letting opportunities slip through your fingers because you're waiting for the perfect time to take action. It can show up as self-doubt, as questioning your worthiness or your abilities. It can show up as perfectionism, where you feel like you have to have everything figured out before you take the first step. But the truth is that day may never come. Waiting for the perfect conditions to pursue your potential is a sure way to miss out on the life you were meant to live. Fear keeps you stuck in a cycle of indecision, of inaction, and of untapped greatness. I've seen many people who are gifted, talented, and capable of incredible things, yet they don't believe in themselves. They allow their fear of what could go wrong to paralyze them, and as a result, they never take that first step toward unlocking their true potential. They let their fear of failure hold them back from starting, and their fear of success keep them from finishing. But what they don't realize is that fear is just a shadow, a mental construct designed to keep them comfortable, to keep them safe in their little bubble of what's familiar. But that bubble is not where greatness lives. Greatness lies outside of your comfort zone, just beyond that fear. It's only by pushing through that fear, by stepping into the unknown and saying, I'm ready for this, that you begin to see the true extent of what you can achieve. The key to overcoming this fear is not to wait for it to go away, because it never will. Fear doesn't disappear just because you wait for it. You have to move through it. You have to act despite the fear, knowing that the only way to grow into the person you are meant to be is by facing that fear head on and pushing through it. Every time you take a step forward, every time you choose to act despite your fear, you show yourself that you are more powerful than your doubt. You begin to see that your potential is not a threat, but a gift that you are meant to use to create something extraordinary. I know it's not easy. I know that fear can be loud, persistent, and convincing, but I also know that your potential is far greater than your fear. When you make the decision to stop being afraid of who you can become, when you embrace your potential rather than run from it, that's when you unlock the door to your true greatness. Your future self is waiting for you to make that choice. They are waiting for you to stop shrinking, stop hiding, and start stepping into your full potential. The world is waiting for you to show up as the person you were meant to be. You were created for more than this. More than the small, limited version of yourself that you are currently living. You are capable of achieving incredible things, but first you have to let go of the fear that has been holding you back. You have to start embracing the person you are becoming, the person you were always meant to be. It's time to stop betraying yourself and start stepping into your full potential. Don't be afraid of who you could become. Be excited by it, because that version of you is unstoppable.